Hi guys, welcome to the new video related to the Koro house. Please subscribe, press that bell button before we get going. Now, when that's off my chest, we can get to the topic of today, which is value engineering. What does value engineering mean? It's basically finding ways to reduce the cost of your build. So you've gotten this dream house drawn by your architect, you're all excited, you send the tenders to construction companies for bidding, and then the quotations start coming in and it's a disaster. You cry a bit, you're sad, but what happens next? Contractors have gone way over the budget what you were planning, so what do we do now? So basically this is exactly what happened to us with Koro house. We were discussing with the architect, okay, this is our budget, we have to aim for this. We started with a smaller house, then while we were designing, we added different rooms, we added different spaces, and it kind of ballooned. And with that ballooning, also ballooned our budget. It didn't balloon on our bank account, but it ballooned in the designs. When we got the first quotations back from the contractors, we definitely cried. It was so far from what we were expecting, and at that point, we weren't sure what to do. So we went back to the architect and we started doing value engineering. So when you are still in the phase of starting the build, so you haven't awarded the contractor, that's the time when you have to do value engineering. When you get the quotations from the contractors, you start working with the architect to see how to reduce the cost. So the budget of our build had doubled. So what to do next? So we had to go back to the drawing board with the architect to see if we can reduce the size, how we can optimize the space, if we can optimize the structure. Basically, what are the ways how to make the build cheaper without having to sacrifice the design. So we already liked what we had. So then we just had to align it with the budget we had to make it work and to get us off the ground. So value engineering should always be done before you go into construction. So if you are already constructing your house and then you realize that, oh no, this is too expensive, or we want to save here, it's gonna be expensive. As all the plans have been approved, the contractor has started the work based on the original plans. When you start changing the original plans, there is always a fee and there is always a cost. So with this saving, what you're trying to get, you are also adding new costs. So then those might balance each other out and you eventually don't save much. So it's very, very important that when you go to construction, you know already that, okay, we've done the value engineering, we are good with the budget, this is what we can do. So always do value engineering before you start constructing. So then to the tips. So there are a few easy things what you can rethink and reconsider if the quotations come too high from the initial contractor rounds. Does your house have a basement? If you have a basement which has to be excavated, that is usually very costly in a country like the Philippines, where you have earthquakes. So when you have to excavate a lot of, already the excavation, soil moving is expensive, but what adds to the cost ton is a retaining wall. So when you build a house underground, you need a retaining wall to stop the earth so it doesn't flow into the house, and it also keeps the moisture outside. And building those walls is not cheap. You need a lot of structure in those, and that adds to the cost. So if you can avoid basement builds, avoid it. So if you want to save in cost, make sure to build above ground. Above ground building is always cheaper than going down. That actually happened to us with the Koro house. That's why we had to do another round of value engineering and another round of bidding to the contractors, because originally we had a basement parking. I love that space. I thought it's very attractive for investors in the future if we want to sell the house, and it's also very, very handy space for us. But when the prices came in, it just doesn't work. We could have basically bought another lot with that money or build another house with that money, but the basement parking was costing. And that was due to the huge retaining wall what they were supposed to build. So when the quotations came back, they were way above the budget. That was the first thing what we were looking at. Okay, this item is way too expensive. We have to get rid of it. And so we moved the parking on the ground level and saved a ton of money in that. Next, list down what are the must-haves and nice-to-haves in your house. With this, you can start narrowing down the cost of the house by just dropping out those which are nice-to-haves, but you don't really need them. When you do design, it often balloons over time slowly. So basically, when you're working with the architect, you might think, okay, but maybe we can add this one, and maybe we can add this one, maybe we can make that a bit bigger. But with that, the cost in the end will rise. And then if you go back to the beginning and start thinking what you really need, you think it once, you think it twice, you think it thrice, give it a thought and see what are the must-haves in a home, and then you go with that instead of going with everything what came during the design process. I've personally never understood the mansions what we see here in the Philippines in the posh villages. Like those huge houses, I don't think they're cozy, I don't think they're homey, I don't think they encourage interaction amongst the family. So build what you need, not what's for show. After you've narrowed down the must-haves, take another look at the materials you're planning to use. So you can go through what tiles you're gonna use, what kind of cabinetry you want, what do you want of your kitchen, what size of windows you want, how many windows you need, and so forth. You go through and see if there are places where you can save money. If you want to keep, for example, that posh looking entrance, or you want to keep that very classy living room for entertainment purposes, then try to find where else can you save in other areas of the house. So you can go cheaper in the beginning, you do some things cheaper, and then in the future, you can renovate those areas when the financials allow it. You can also consider getting several suppliers for similar materials. So you can have a main supplier for windows. They are supplying all the main windows in your house, or the sun side windows where you need more protection from the heat. And then you have those areas where you don't need the highest end supplier. So you can go up for another window supplier who will then supply all those windows to the other areas. So with this, you will save money. But it's a little bit more coordination for sure, but when you look at the numbers, it might be worth it. So just to conclude, be wise what is worth the money for you. Do your research, compare different suppliers. When you get more quotations, you're able to make better comparisons and you're able to make more educated decisions. So don't throw your money to the ditch, but be wise and do what you can actually afford. So this was today's video about value engineering. If you have questions, leave them down below in the comment section, and then I'll try to answer them as well as I know. But thanks for watching. Hope it helps.